The greatest mistake most people make is believing that power is demonstrated through immediate action. They think the quickest response is the strongest response. Someone insults them, and they rush to defend themselves. Someone questions their abilities, and they begin explaining their intentions. Someone provokes them, and they feel obligated to react. But if you study history carefully, if you observe the behavior of truly influential people, you'll notice something fascinating. The people who possess the most psychological power are rarely the first to respond. They understand that every emotional reaction is a negotiation, and in that negotiation, the first person to lose emotional control usually surrenders the stronger position. This is the first law of psychological power. Control yourself before attempting to control any situation. Most conflicts are never about words, they are about emotional leverage. Every criticism, every insult, every act of disrespect is often less about hurting you and more about measuring you. People are constantly, consciously or unconsciously, testing where your emotional boundaries lie. They want to know what makes you angry, what makes you insecure, what makes you defensive. The moment you reveal those pressure points through your reaction, you've handed them the map to your mind. Think about it. Imagine someone who knows exactly how to make you upset. They don't need to defeat you physically or intellectually. They simply need to say the right sentence, make the right accusation, or challenge your ego. If your emotions immediately take control, they have already influenced your behavior. They didn't need force. They only needed your lack of discipline. This is why emotional control has always been considered the highest form of strength. Ancient philosophers understood it. Military strategists depended on it. Great leaders mastered it. They knew that the battlefield of the mind is always won before any external battle begins. Most people confuse silence with weakness. In reality, silence often requires far greater strength than speaking. Anyone can react, anyone can shout, anyone can defend themselves, but remaining composed while your emotions demand expression, that is rare. That requires discipline. The human brain evolved to respond instantly to threats. Thousands of years ago, immediate reactions helped our ancestors survive physical danger. But modern life presents psychological dangers instead of physical ones. Today, someone attacks your reputation instead of your body. Someone challenges your status instead of your survival, yet your nervous system still wants to react as though you're facing a life or death situation. Understanding this changes everything. The feeling you experience after being criticized isn't proof that you should respond. It's simply biology asking for immediate relief, and temporary emotional relief often creates long-term regret. Notice how many people destroy relationships, careers, and opportunities because of one uncontrolled moment, one angry message, one impulsive argument, one emotional decision made in frustration. Years of discipline can disappear because of 60 seconds of reaction. Psychological power begins when you interrupt that cycle. Before responding, you create distance between emotion and action. In that space, you regain freedom. Instead of becoming a prisoner of your feelings, you become their observer. You recognize anger without obeying it. You notice embarrassment without allowing it to control your behavior. You experience criticism without making it your identity. This is what separates emotionally intelligent individuals from emotionally reactive ones. There's another reason powerful people remain calm. They understand perception. People rarely remember the exact words exchanged during conflict. They remember who remained composed. The calm person appears confident. The reactive person appears unstable. Even if the reactive individual is technically correct, excessive emotion weakens credibility. Confidence does not announce itself. It reveals itself through restraint. Imagine two people in the same confrontation. One raises their voice, interrupts constantly, explains every detail, and desperately tries to prove their point. The other listens carefully, speaks only when necessary, and never appears emotionally rushed. Which one naturally seems more powerful? Human psychology consistently associates calmness with competence. We instinctively trust people who appear comfortable under pressure because composure signals inner security. It communicates that this person doesn't need immediate validation. They don't need everyone to agree with them. They are not controlled by public opinion. This is why truly confident people rarely chase the final word. They know that winning an argument isn't the same as winning respect. Respect grows from consistency, from stability, from emotional discipline that remains intact regardless of circumstances. There is also an important distinction between suppressing emotions and mastering them. Mastery doesn't mean pretending you never feel anger or disappointment. It means refusing to let those emotions make your decisions. You still feel everything, you simply choose not to become everything you feel. That distinction changes your entire life. Because once people realize they cannot manipulate your emotions, they begin losing interest in trying. Manipulators survive on predictable reactions. They provoke because they expect resistance. They criticize because they expect defense. They insult because they expect emotional chaos. But when none of those expected reactions arrive, something remarkable happens. Their strategy collapses, silence creates uncertainty, calmness creates doubt, self-control creates psychological pressure. The person attempting to provoke you suddenly begins questioning themselves instead. This is not about becoming cold or indifferent toward everyone. It is about becoming intentional. Every response should be a choice, never a reflex. Every action should come from clarity, never from wounded pride. Ask yourself a simple question the next time someone tries to disturb your peace. Am I responding because this situation deserves my energy, or because my ego demands it? That single question can prevent countless regrets. Over time, emotional discipline becomes more than a habit. It becomes your identity. People begin recognizing you as someone who cannot be easily shaken. They stop expecting impulsive reactions because you've trained yourself to remain centered. And once people realize they cannot control your emotions, they slowly lose the ability to control you. Real power is never loud. It doesn't rush to prove itself. It doesn't seek victory in every argument or recognition in every room. It stands quietly, patiently, knowing that the strongest mind is the one that remains calm while everyone else loses control. Once you've learned to master your emotional reactions, a deeper challenge appears. It is no longer enough to remain calm in the face of provocation. You must also resist the urge to explain yourself. This is where most people unknowingly surrender the authority they worked so hard to build. Human beings have a natural desire to be understood. We want others to know our intentions. We want them to see our side of the story. When someone misunderstands us, criticizes us, or spreads false assumptions, our instinct is to correct the record. We begin defending ourselves, providing context, offering evidence, and hoping that if we explain enough, people will finally understand. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone is seeking understanding. Many people are seeking a reaction. There is a profound psychological difference between a person who asks questions because they want clarity and a person who asks questions because they want control. The first listens, the second traps, the first seeks truth, the second seeks emotional leverage. The moment you fail to recognize that difference, you begin playing a game designed for you to lose. Manipulative people rarely attack directly. They create situations where you feel compelled to defend yourself. They make subtle accusations. They twist your words. They imply rather than state. They leave just enough ambiguity to make you uncomfortable. Their goal is not to win an argument, it is to pull you into one. Why? Because the moment you become defensive, the balance of power shifts. You stop leading the conversation and begin chasing approval. Instead of deciding what deserves your attention, someone else decides for you. Think about how often this happens in everyday life. Someone questions your motives. Suddenly, you spend 20 minutes explaining yourself. Someone doubts your competence. You rush to prove your qualifications. Someone accuses you of being arrogant, selfish, distant, or uncaring. Before you know it, you're building an entire case to defend your character. Without realizing it, you've accepted their frame. Psychological power belongs to the person who defines the frame, not the person trapped inside it. This is why silence is so unsettling. Silence refuses the frame. It refuses the invitation to justify, defend, or perform. It communicates something powerful without saying a word. My sense of self does not depend on your approval. That message is difficult to challenge. Most people assume silence means you've run out of answers. In reality, silence often means you've stopped believing every accusation deserves one. There is an important distinction between communication and explanation. Communication builds understanding where understanding is possible. Explanation often becomes an endless attempt to convince people who have already decided what they want to believe. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every accusation deserves your energy. One of the greatest shifts in personal power happens when you stop asking, "How can I make everyone understand me?" and start asking, "Who has actually earned an explanation?" Very few people qualify. Those closest to you, people who consistently demonstrate honesty, loyalty, and good faith, deserve clarity. But strangers, critics, attention seekers, and manipulators often do not. They aren't investing in your growth. They're investing in your reaction, and reactions are valuable currency. Notice how social media thrives on outrage. Headlines are designed to provoke. Comments are written to trigger emotion. Entire conversations become competitions over who can extract the strongest response. This is not accidental. Attention has become one of the most valuable resources in modern society. Every emotional reaction you give away is attention someone else has successfully captured. Powerful individuals guard their attention with extraordinary discipline. They understand that attention is life itself. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy goes, your future is shaped. If you allow every criticism, insult, rumor, or provocation to steal your focus, you slowly hand your life over to people who contribute nothing to it. This is why ignoring can be one of the strongest psychological strategies available. Ignoring is often misunderstood as passive. It is not passive. True ignoring is active restraint. It is the conscious decision to deny unnecessary conflict, the reward it seeks. Think about a fire. Every argument needs fuel. Every manipulator needs participation. Every attention seeker needs acknowledgement. Remove the fuel, and the fire slowly dies on its own. Many people continue fighting because they believe silence allows others to win. But ask yourself, what exactly have they won? An unanswered accusation, a temporary opinion, a conversation you've already chosen to leave behind. Meanwhile, you've protected your emotional stability, your focus, your reputation, and your time. Who truly gained more? Powerful people understand something that insecure people struggle to accept. Reputation is built through consistent behavior, not constant defense. If your character is genuine, people who matter will eventually recognize it through your actions. If your character is false, No amount of explanation will permanently convince them otherwise. Actions have a credibility that words can never manufacture. This doesn't mean you never speak. It means you speak with intention rather than impulse. Sometimes one calm sentence carries more influence than 20 emotional paragraphs. Sometimes walking away communicates greater confidence than winning an argument. Sometimes your silence becomes the loudest statement in the room. The irony is fascinating. The less desperately you try to control what everyone thinks about you, the more respect you often earn. Why? Because confidence is contagious. People naturally trust individuals who appear comfortable without universal approval. They recognize an inner stability that cannot be shaken by changing opinions. This stability creates mystery. Mystery creates curiosity. Curiosity creates influence. And influence grows without force. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. The same people who once tried to provoke you realize they can no longer predict your behavior. They no longer know how to pull you into unnecessary conflict. Their usual tactics stop working because you've removed the emotional reward they depended on. You become psychologically unavailable to manipulation. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. Freedom is not the absence of criticism. It is the absence of dependence on criticism. Freedom is not convincing everyone you're right. It is no longer needing everyone to agree before you feel secure. And once you reach that point, your presence changes. You stop entering every conversation prepared to defend yourself. You begin entering with quiet certainty. Your words become fewer, your choices become sharper, and your attention becomes far more valuable because you spend it only where it truly matters. By now, you've seen how psychological power begins with mastering your emotions and grows stronger when you stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned that privilege. But there is one final transformation that ties these lessons together. It is the difference between occasionally practicing self-control and becoming the kind of person who cannot be shaken at all. This is where true influence begins, not in what you say, but in who you become. Most people spend their lives reacting to the world around them. Their confidence rises when they receive praise and disappears when they receive criticism. Their mood depends on how others treat them. Their sense of worth is constantly negotiated through opinions, approval, and validation. As long as your identity depends on external responses, your peace can always be taken away. Real psychological power begins the moment your identity becomes internal instead of external. Think about the people who leave the strongest impression wherever they go. They rarely announce their confidence. They do not constantly remind others of their achievements. They do not chase attention or demand respect. Yet people naturally notice them. Why? Because they possess something that cannot be faked: inner certainty. Inner certainty is quiet because it has nothing to prove. The insecure mind is always speaking. It seeks reassurance. It seeks agreement. It seeks evidence that it is worthy. But the secure mind has already answered those questions privately. It enters every room without needing permission to belong there. This is why calmness is so intimidating. Calmness suggests that your emotional center cannot be controlled by the environment. It tells people that your decisions are guided by principles rather than pressure. When someone realizes they cannot influence your emotions through praise or criticism, they begin to lose influence over you altogether. That is an extraordinary form of freedom. Many people mistakenly believe influence comes from being louder, more aggressive, or more dominant. But history repeatedly teaches a different lesson. The individuals who shaped nations, led movements, and commanded loyalty often possessed an unusual ability to remain composed when everyone else became emotional. Panic spreads quickly, so does composure. One unstable person can infect an entire room with anxiety. But one deeply centered individual can restore order without raising their voice. Human beings unconsciously look for emotional anchors. We instinctively trust those who remain steady during uncertainty. Become that person. Not because you want admiration, but because stability is one of the greatest gifts you can offer yourself and others. There is another layer to this transformation that many overlook. When you stop reacting impulsively, people can no longer predict you. Predictability is comfortable, but it is also exploitable. If someone knows exactly what will offend you, exactly what compliment will flatter you, or exactly what criticism will make you defensive, they possess a degree of control over your behavior. But when your responses are guided by thoughtful choice instead of emotional habit, you become difficult to manipulate. This is not about becoming mysterious for the sake of appearing powerful. It is about becoming so self-aware that every action reflects intention rather than impulse. The world respects those who cannot be easily read because it assumes depth where there is restraint. There is also a profound difference between indifference and emotional detachment. Indifference says, "I don't care about anything." Emotional detachment says, "I care deeply, but I refuse to let temporary emotions govern permanent decisions." That distinction matters. A detached person still loves, still feels compassion, still experiences disappointment and joy, but those emotions become advisors rather than dictators. They provide information, not commands. Imagine how different your life would become if every major decision passed through reflection instead of reaction. How many arguments would disappear? How many relationships would improve? How many opportunities would remain open simply because you chose patience over pride? Patience is often misunderstood as waiting. In reality, patience is disciplined emotional timing. It is the ability to allow clarity to arrive before action. Powerful people understand timing better than most. They know that not every opportunity must be seized immediately. Not every insult deserves a response today. Not every conflict must be resolved in the heat of the moment. Sometimes the strongest move is allowing time to expose what emotion tries to hide. Time has an extraordinary habit of revealing character. Those who lie eventually contradict themselves. Those who manipulate eventually reveal their intentions. Those who seek attention eventually become desperate for it. Meanwhile, the person who remains disciplined continues building something much more valuable than temporary victories, a reputation for consistency. Reputation built through consistency is nearly impossible to imitate. Anyone can appear confident for an afternoon. Anyone can remain calm during an easy conversation, but maintaining dignity through disappointment, betrayal, misunderstanding, and pressure that creates trust. People begin describing you differently. They say nothing seems to shake them. They never overreact. They always think before speaking. They're dependable under pressure. These descriptions become more valuable than compliments about intelligence or talent because they describe character. Character is influence that survives changing circumstances. As these 7 laws become habits, you'll notice another subtle shift. You stop measuring success by how many arguments you win. You begin measuring success by how much peace you preserve. You stop asking whether people like you. You begin asking whether your actions align with your values. You stop chasing validation. You begin building substance. And substance has a remarkable quality. It attracts respect naturally. There is no need to announce discipline, because disciplined people reveal themselves through consistency. There is no need to advertise confidence, because confident people reveal it through restraint. There is no need to demand respect, because those who respect themselves deeply often receive it without asking. This does not mean life becomes free from criticism, betrayal, or misunderstanding. Those experiences remain part of every human journey. The difference is that they no longer define you. They no longer interrupt your purpose. They no longer determine your identity. Instead of becoming obstacles, they become opportunities to practice the very principles that separate ordinary minds from extraordinary ones. Every difficult conversation becomes an opportunity to remain calm. Every false accusation becomes an opportunity to remain silent when silence is wiser. Every disappointment becomes an opportunity to strengthen your emotional independence. Eventually, these moments stop feeling like tests. They simply become who you are. That is the ultimate expression of psychological power, not pretending to be strong, but becoming so deeply rooted in self-mastery that no external storm can uproot your inner peace. So as you leave this message behind and return to your own life, remember these 7 laws whenever the world invites you into unnecessary conflict. You do not have to react to every insult. You do not have to explain yourself to every critic. You do not have to fight every battle simply because someone else declared one. Choose your attention carefully, protect your peace relentlessly, master yourself completely.